a Today I found out my great-grandfather was a Native American medicine man and his wife was a Japanese shrine maiden. Grandmother sits me down and asks me if I had ever experienced anything strange. Like what? Spirits, demons, skinwalkers, strange people. She already knew about the demon in my room, but the other incidents such as David, the skinwalker, and the man who disappeared in Walmart were stories I only ever told to my friends, never to my parents or anyone in my family. Yes, I have, plenty of times. She laughs and begins to ask me if I knew why these sorts of things happened to me. I just told her I assumed it was some strange happenings that most people get, mine just happen more frequently. She laughs again and begins to explain that my great-grandfather who served in World War II had become smitten with a Japanese woman he met. Her name was Amaya. As it turns out, was a shrine maiden. They both married and told my grandmother about how they would constantly see ghosts and demons and would ward them off. My grandmother would usually see this as them playing games with him since he couldn't see any ghosts or spirits himself. She goes on to tell me that I am not the only one who has told her about my paranormal dealings. In fact, 4 of the 8 cousins I have told her the same thing. She said that because my great-grandfather and great-grandmother were so connected to spirits and the paranormal, it rubbed off on their children and grandchildren. It would help explain all the paranormal and or strange happenings in my life in some way or another. To add to this, my great-grandfather never told me he was a medicine man. I had known him for at most 6 years before he passed away. My great-grandmother died way before I was born. My mother and her brothers/sisters used to always talk about the things they'd see when they were younger. My aunt still talks to me about the figures she would see and the people who would ask her strange things about those figures. My uncle claims that he once spoke to our great-grandfather's spirit whilst on the road during his truck driving days. Said he taught him how to make certain medicines from the nature surrounding him. My grandfather used to make a soup that would help us get better from sickness in less than a few hours, and I'm not talking head colds. He once made the soup for me whilst I had the flu. Within a few hours, I felt like I had come back better than ever. Going off the part about my grandfather, he would always pick herbs and certain grain from wherever he was to put in his bag. He always had some sort of remedy for anything. Used very natural stuff to heal wounds like aloe. I remember he used to have a very specific remedy using cacti, red pepper, and cinnamon to help with stiff necks that he would give my father or uncles whenever they complained about a rough day at work messing their necks up. I still remember the very easy recipe he gave me to help with allergies, of which I suffer greatly from. His arthritis potion, as he called them, consisted of mostly warm water and paprika, which oddly did help more than you expected. I remember asking him why he sometimes just stood at the front of his house with a weird stick. I was 9. He told me that he was making sure that Grandma stayed safe while he was away, and the stick was to make sure that no harm was to come to her. I asked how waving the stick would do anything. Being the kind grandfather he was, he said, "Let me show you." I remember him gently putting the stick on my head as he chanted something I can't remember. "There, now no harm will come to you." I simply rolled my eyes and thought he was just being wacky. That week I had one of the strangest weeks of my life. Things just seemingly avoided me that would normally harm me. Glass randomly on the road, untied shoelaces, basketballs coming straight at me just seemed to avoid me. I remember he once talked to me, much later in life, about wanting to learn something from him that would help me in life. I asked him about the recipe for the allergies. I noticed he probably didn't expect me to say just that, but, being the kind man he was, simply taught me the recipe with a smile. I'm going to quote the stuff I wrote down from my great-grandfather's book. We'll fix some errors in grammar and such, but other than that, this is all his words. "A young woman came to me today. She was holding her stomach. She seemed to be pregnant, but no outward signs of any actual illness other than her saying she felt pained. I tell her to rest and sit back. From what it seemed like, her child was ready to be released to the world. I tell her that the baby will soon be out in the world and she should be ready to give birth. She seemed shocked. I ask her why she seemed so bewildered by this. She said that she did not feel the baby was alone in her body. She said she felt as if she had some sort of energy coming from herself that belonged to no one she knew. I ask her what she feels besides the energy she told me about. She said that she felt faint and weak, as if her strength had been all but taken from her. As she speaks, I notice a strange feeling emitting from her body. Not evil, but not benevolent. I ask her if she has noticed any shadows around her lately, perhaps someone calling to her in the night. Her eyes seem to bug out and she tries to deflect my words. I ask again if she has seen anything like shadows calling her in the night. She is reluctant, but she admits that in the past few nights a voice that sounds like her father who had earlier passed on was calling to her. She even said that she saw someone who looked like her father call for her in the night. She said she went to it and spoke to him. She said that the more she spoke to him the more she felt weak. She said to me that the baby seemed to feel this too, as it too felt less spry and energetic as it had been the past few months. I tell her that what she has seen is not her father but a spirit. I told her of spirits who sometimes take shape in our world looking for energy to pass on. Sometimes these spirits, while benevolent, can still attract those in the living world and take their energy whether or not they mean to. As the woman begins to go into labor more and as she seems to be weaker and weaker with each push, it is quite obvious what I must do. While she is in labor, I begin a very simple exorcising ritual. I must be very careful with it since normally a full-grown man or woman could take the strain of it easily. But I am not dealing with just a full-grown woman. I begin to do the ritual and hoping the woman can deliver the baby as we go. I spread the spices and mixtures whilst chanting, and it seems that the aura around her is starting to fade. The woman seems to be more and more at ease, seemingly she seems to almost feel no pain while giving birth. As the spirit fades, so does the sound from the room. A beautiful child emerges, crying with strong lungs, almost piercing in its sound. This is a healthy child, it will grow strong for our tribe. The woman lays there smiling, asking what should she do next. I tell her to rest and to let the child rest as well. I give her milk and some blankets for the child. She rests in my hut for the rest of the evening and leaves when she is fully capable some days later. The father, who was out on a work-related trip, came back in a hurry, worried about his child as he had heard from others that a baby was born and he knew it had to be his. I explained all the happenings with the child and the spirit and told him to make sure to take the special charm I made for them to ward off any other spirits from the child and mother while he is away. The man, while he does listen, is more in tears of joy for his new child, a healthy girl, truly marvelous.